And welcome to a special edition of TalkBackFans. I'm Pat Langdon,
I'm Danny Boyce.
Terry Heil.
and we are live at Viking Village. And you all know who this is. Terry, who we got with us?
We are in Elvis's building tonight.
Yes.
We are joined by head football coach, athletic director, and Marianist Urban Student Program Director, Elvis Grbac, class of 1988.
You got it. Yep.
Michigan man, class of 93, 9 years in the NFL, drafted by the 49ers, ended up with the Chiefs, and then finished with the Baltimore Ravens.
That's right.
Not bad, huh?
There
Great.
you go.
Thank you, guys.
so-
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. Well, we're kind of sitting in the Purple Palace, are we not?
We are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Babe's place, not my place. My place is over in that backfield over there, and then hopefully maybe in the future, maybe that'll be our home field back there for football. So we'll see. We'll see how that happens. But I wanted to say thank you guys for having me. This is awesome.
Thank you
Yeah,
for making.
we can talk about the Viking Village a little bit, and sitting here with a guy who's been here through thick and thin. So I would just thank you for guys for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you taking some time with us. I know it's been a long day. You just met all your coaches. That was a pretty good meeting. I enjoyed listening to it. So, first impression as you've taken over the job here, the obvious, you played here, starred here, all of that stuff. What made you say, yeah, I want to come home?
That's easy. You know what? It was interesting as I took the position and wanted to be a part of the process of, continuing our upswing here at Villangela at St. Joseph's High School. That's going to be hard for me to say because it's just real St. Joe's, but we'll work on that. I tell you what, when I walked on campus and I met the kids and the staff, the coaches, there's something about this place when they say the Viking Village, it's still here. I don't know if it's the buildings. I don't know what it is. You can't describe it. I had a good friend of mine, Greg Fideli, who was I think an 84 grad, asked me that after my first couple of days on the job. And he said, is it still the same way? And it really is. It really is. I mean, I talk to all the parents constantly about their kids, their student athletes, and I tell them all, I said, I'm impressed with your kids, the way they handle themselves, the way they're respectful, the way they handle themselves academically, the sports aspects of it. It's a special place. It really is. I can't describe it. I can't put a finger on it. Like, this is it. This is how we do it. It's a magical place. It always has been, and I think it'll continue to do that.
And I think that gets at something, Pat. I know you've always asked Danny and I went to Benny, Danny went to Lake. What is it with the Catholic school guys that there just seems to be something there that you as a UCLA grad didn't quite feel? And I think that he did a pretty good job of explaining it. There's some sort of whether it's a village, a family, a pack, a gaggle, whatever, there's something that binds those people together.
Yeah, you know what? And let's just write our motto here is faith, family, and future. Guys, before I even took this position, I went around the country and I would give talks. Babe does the same thing. And I gave talks to men's conferences, men's Catholic conferences, and I would speak in front of, 2,000 guys. And that's what I talked about: faith, family, and your work life. And I kind of chuckled when I saw that was a motto here at the Village. And like tonight, I had a whole staff meeting, and that's the first thing I talked about. It's very, very important that those coaches understand that we're not just coaches. The guys that coached me, the Mike Morans, the great Quaz who's sitting over here, the Bill Guppereds, they were not just athletic coaches. They were men of faith. And that's really came across in everything that they did. And that kind of just propelled us to play even better. There was something there that we could always fall on. There was kind of like the solid foundation that we have. And I truly believe that all our coaches that are present tonight that we had our meeting is that they have to understand that's where we start. We start with our faith, and from there we can build whatever we want. If we're on solid ground from there, you can do the family aspect, you can do the future, you can do the student athlete, you can do all that. But if you don't have that foundational part of it, then nothing else will happen.
So, Coach, let me ask you then, you talk about the faith aspect of it first. I've listened to a couple of your talks. So from that, I can discern that it wasn't an event that kind of led you to immerse yourself in faith. It was kind of a series of events that happened over a couple of years. Would you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So my process of, in Catholicism, you can't say conversion. I mean,
So I use the word immersion.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Not the word of the day.
And it's
Good
a typical story. It's a typical story of every guy that goes through, professional life or whatever it is that you do. You do have that faith life, you do have that family life, and then your work life. And so what happens is it can happen in coaching. That coaching or that, your professional life becomes really who defines you. And what happens is your faith life gets really pushed to the side. I was that guy. I had an unbelievable opportunity and experience here at St. Joe's, and then went on to Michigan. And by the time I was done playing in the Professional Football League, I was a little lost afterwards. My faith was nowhere to be found. I mean, I was a great professional football player, and people knew me as a football player. I always had my family, which was always solid for me, but I didn't have that faith aspect. I had lost that since, my high school days. And it really took me a long process to really kind of figure that out and come back to that. That's a very typical story of every person that kind of goes through that. They'll go through that period of questioning, doing those things. There's nothing wrong with that, because what you want to do is you want to provide for your family, your career. You want to do all those things. But at the same time, what I encourage men to do is you can do all three at the same time, but you got to do them in proper order, but you can have them intertwined together. And really, if you can continue to have that the faith aspect, then everything kind of falls into place. And that's what happened for me.
Yeah. And then as you go to that next step, the family step. So 3 distinct phases of your life: growing up, time you spent here, and then the time you spent at Michigan and thereafter. Right. So let's go with mom and dad.
Okay.
Let's go with somebody that you encountered here at St. Joe's, and then somebody you encountered in the rest of your life. One thing that you took from each of those
wow.
3.
Okay, so you got to know my parents, and Coach Kwaz is sitting over here. He's known my parents for 30 years, something like that. My parents are solid as rock. I mean, they are just fantastic. If I didn't have my parents, I wouldn't be the person I am today. My mom and dad, came to this country in 1968 from Croatia. At that time, it was Yugoslavia. My father did not speak English. My mom didn't speak English. They had no money to their names. My older brother was born there, and my older sister were born there. My first language in the house was Croatian.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got to kindergarten, I was like, English. I'm like, well, what the hell are you guys talking about? So I was like totally behind. I mean, academically, I was so behind. It was ridiculous. But the faith aspect was big for my family. I mean, very staunch Roman Catholic. I mean, I'm old school European. Okay. And it still continues today. When I got here, boy, I don't want to leave anybody out. There's so many people. I mean, this guy over here, Coach Kwaz, was.
You don't have to name the person, but just give us one thing that you took from somebody here. Again, whether it was coach, teacher, administrator.
That's easy. Coach Grbac. That's where, I was always around great coaches. Okay, let me just name the guys: Bill Grbac, Coach Kwaz, Moran. Okay, Guilfoyle. Okay, I'm gonna Coach Story. Okay. I get to Michigan, Bo Schembechler, Gary Moeller, Cam Cameron, Les Miles is my offensive line coach. Wow. Okay. I go to, San Francisco, George Seifert, around Bill Walsh. Bill Walsh and I spent some time together in the summertime. Mike Shanahan, Gary Kubiak. Go to Kansas City, Marty Schottenheimer. Mike McCarthy was my quarterback coach. Then I went to Baltimore. Brian Billick was the head coach. Matt Cavanaugh was my quarterback coach. I had unbelievable coaches everywhere I've gone. I mean, that's so key to have that. But let's go back to Coach Grbac. Somebody asked me a little while ago, maybe it was another radio show or something, and they said, what would you take away from a guy like that? That was easy. Humility. I mean, here's a guy who absolutely loved this place, loved the kids, one of the greatest coaches in the history of football in the state of Ohio, and he's the most humblest man in the world. I mean, he breathed and just lived humility. I mean, people would sit there and try to praise him and things like that, and it wasn't about him.
Coach Basu was the same way.
Yeah, and it's just the great coaches, I think, have that great quality about them, is they're just so humble because it's not about them. It's about the players that they're coaching. And that's the kind of people I want here coaching, like this guy right here next to me. You know, I've known him for a long time, good, humble man, that he loves this place so much and he loves the players that he has. It's not about him. It's about the players that can go to the next level and fulfill their dreams. We already did our thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's about the players now. What can we help for those players to get to the next level and be successful in whatever they want to do? Yeah. Continuing on after that, I'd probably get killed if I didn't mention my wife.
And that's fine.
So you got to remember, I met my wife. I met my wife in high school. Okay, I was here to dance my senior year, and then we went down to a party down here down the street. It wasn't Neff, but we went to a house party over here, and I met her, got her number, called her the next day, and my father-in-law is the first graduating class of St. Joe's, and my wife, or my girlfriend at the time, my wife goes, yeah, I was just talking to some kid named Elvis or whatever, and my father-in-law is like, Elvis Grbac? You need to call him back, like right now. So we've been married 25 years, 3 great kids. My oldest lives in Chicago now, graduated from the University of Dayton. I have a second son. He's in Charleston. He's a junior. And then my daughter got all the athletic genes. She's a 6'2" outside hitter at the University of Northwestern, women's volleyball. Just made the dean's list. She went to Gilmore, straight A's. I mean, she's the total package. Like, she walked in this gym right now, you'd be like, oh yeah, she's a badass athlete. So yeah, so my wife was a solid rock through all that. So remember, guys, you know, she met me as this Croatian kid that played basketball and football here and saw me develop through those Michigan years into my professional year and stuck by my side through all that. I mean, I say this in a lot of my talks I give, she's Irish and Italian. Okay. It's a deadly combination. She's a mean cook and she drinks whiskey like it's water. So
sounds like someone I get along with.
So she's a strong woman, real strong woman. And you know, I think anybody who's really successful always has that other partner that is always a part of them. So that's where we're at.
Fair enough.
Well, now, like you said, you get to come back. How long after your playing days were done did you decide, hey, I want to stay in athletics, I want to get into coaching? When did you really start to make that decision in that transition in your life?
Okay, so don't hold this against me. So, you know, I coached over at Ignatius for a good 6-7 years. And then the last year I was there, I was the team chaplain. Okay, so there's a faith aspect that really kind of kicked in for me. Boy, when I got into coaching, I was very, very hesitant, just because hearing all the things about dealing with parents and players and things like that. And Coach Kyle really embraced me coming in. Talk about another humble man. I mean, unbelievable state championship, national championship, all those things. And you talk to him, and he is just like Coach Grbac, the most humble person you could meet. And he wanted me to come in because he wanted to pick my brain and how to, you know, offensively, you know, thinking about defenses and things like that. I think at any level in coaching, you're always trying to learn something new in your profession. And he continues to do that. He still does that today. It's amazing what he does. But I will say this, I learned more from him than he learned more from me. Boy, when I got there, you know, the mentality of football, you know, you get some coaches that are yellers and screamers. And I had that a little bit in me, you know, because when I want something done correctly, I want it done correctly. And I want to get my point across. He had a whole different style of challenging those men. He put the the responsibility on them. This is your season. You are the seniors. Whatever you want out of this season, that's what you're going to get out of it. It depends on how much time and effort you put into it. Okay. You're going to get out of it, because we're going to give you 100% as a coaching staff and put you in those positions to be successful. Okay. But what are you going to get out of it? Okay. I learned so much from him, and just the way to coach and teach. And, and that's the one thing that I think you find here at the Village. Coaches can teach. We're not just yellers and screamers, and we don't do that. We teach technique. We teach, how to win, how to play, whatever we're doing. We have great teachers of the game. And I think that's what kind of separates, the people that we have in this, our school compared to a lot of schools.
Yeah. Two things working off of that. One, I think that's one of the great misnomers, is that these legendary coaches like Coach Basu, Coach Gutbrod,
Right.
Coach Kyle, Coach Sarah, who Pat played for, people think that they're pontificators. When in actuality, we've all seen it where, no, they draw from, they surround themselves with great people so that they can draw from them.
Yes.
Right.
The other thing I think is interesting, where you said that he put it on the seniors, because I think that's what we've all experienced and who we played for too, is it's one thing to be disappointed because you didn't perform well, but it's another thing to not want to, where you want to perform well, because if you don't, you're afraid you're going to disappoint Coach Gutbrod, Coach Sarah, Coach Basu, Coach, you name it.
Right.
And there's, if you've never played for one of those guys, you don't know what that feels like.
Right.
There's a whole other level of stuff you're dealing with.
It's a totally different way of coaching, because it's not about the coach anymore. The coach can provide you and teach you all the techniques. But like I told my guys, the first meeting I had with my guys, I said, Elvis Grbac is not going to throw a touchdown ever again at St. Joe's. Never again. Do you understand that? It's going to be you guys on that field making the plays. And I also said, you know what, tradition, guys, tradition's in the past. Okay. It's one thing to have that. That's fantastic. That's okay for the fans and former players and things like that. But when you're here playing, you make the plays, you make the history. You're the one who's invested in this.
Create your own story, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And, those coaches, I think, are so successful because it puts a responsibility on those kids. Because let's just say this, whoever plays basketball, whoever plays hoops or football, they may never play ever again. And so what are you teaching them? They're going to go out into the college, or they're going to work, or whatever they're going to do. They're going to learn that the responsibility is on them to be successful. And I think that's what those great coaches do. They draw that out of those players. I'm
going to speak as a Euclid grad really quick. I'm glad for all the guys that, that you're never going to throw another touchdown.
Well, maybe I didn't even do it again when I played, because I had this Desmond Howard in the backfield, and all I did was hand the ball off.
Well, we talked about this when Babe and his father were on the show about a month ago or so, and I talked about the '84 game when we were freshmen, and that was a big deal when Euclid won, and you guys were having nothing of it as we move forward from there. So, but I did want to ask Babe a quick question. As somebody that has basically grown up in this building, what is it like to know that you're now working with somebody that you grew up watching and been around for pretty much your whole life?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you go back to Pat, what he said about faith, family, future, right? And the faith part, Coach Grbac right away said, "Hey, we're gonna pray before practice, and we're gonna pray after practice," and right away that's a challenge to me, and that's something I welcome. The family piece, I mean, look around, man. Like this place means so many different things to so many different people, but this is my home. I mean, this is like literally where I grew up. So when I think about my relationship with Coach, I mean, there's so many stories that could be a whole nother podcast. I mean, the first one I would start with that he'll still deny.
We'll get that one scheduled before we leave tonight. Yeah.
So
over at Skinny's apparently.
So we're playing at Ignatius, and he did stick me in a locker for a half because I was running my mouth too much. So even back then he was putting me in. Talk about being humbled. I think that was probably the start.
But he let you out, right?
He did let you out.
No, Joey Moran. For the record.
I had to go play a game.
Priorities, right?
It was halfway between the third quarter when Joey Moran. So Joey Moran, if you're watching, thank you for saving my life and making me claustrophobic. But no, I mean, there's a lot too that people don't know. I mean, for example, as good as Elvis was here, his sister was arguably the best female athlete here. She was one of the best friends of my sister, who has since passed away. You know, you talk about family, it just means so much. I could vividly remember taking my sister to college in 1991, in the fall of 1991, and you know, Michigan's playing Notre Dame, and my father and the late and great Pat Lyons brought us to that game, and it was the first time I ever saw my father, the first of many times I ever saw my father cry tears of joy. And when Elvis threw the pass, and you know, he had his arms up in the air, that was the most joyous moment I've ever seen another human being in my life be for somebody else. And at that point, it taught me, you know, Elvis was his son. I mean, you know, and as Desmond was, I mean, he had a great relationship with both of them. But it kind of taught me, you know, how important it was as a coach, you know, that they don't care how much you know, but they know how much you care. And just to see my father and Coach Lyons, you know, that happy. And, you know, and that brings us to the future. And the future is that it's never been so bright here. Now, for me personally, I mean, my goodness, I mean, I hit the lottery. I mean, I modeled my leadership style, you know, over a guy that I worshiped growing up, right? I mean, like, so, and not only is, you know, it's not only one thing for the fact that, you know, playing in Pro Bowls and Super Bowls and what he's done, but I mean, we've never had a coach AD here, right? Somebody that, again, a lot of the ways I see things, I learned from watching him grow up. But more importantly, this is, you know, this decision is bigger than sport, right? I mean, heck, I'd be remiss. So Bill Sowers, the guy who was, you know, the predecessor, he did a heck of a job. He was a good friend of mine. You know, I joke and say, hey man, if Clark Kellogg wanted to come back and coach basketball, it's like, hey, Coach Quas, you've done a nice job, but you know, you want to take the JV. But I mean, this is bigger than, you know, this is bigger than football. This is bigger than basketball. I mean, I said this, you know, to the News Herald, and I believe it. This is the number one biggest thing that's ever happened to our school. And I say this, and here's the reason I say this, guys, is because you know, there's a lot of us, you know, we're all here for different reasons, right? And Elvis just talked to all the coaches, and our Coach Grbac just talked to all the coaches, and we're all here because we love the place. We don't make a lot of money, and there's a lot of legendary coaches here. You know, Mark Royer and Bobby Mullen are as great as they get. But at the end of the day, like he could have went anywhere and could do anything. I mean, the guy literally could be coaching in the pros. He could be at Michigan. He'd be at Northwestern. He can do whatever he wanted to, and here he is back home. Taking care of our kids. So, you know, home is where the heart is. I mean, it's not a building. It's not, you know, it's not a purple palace. It's not structures. I mean, home is people. So, I mean, this is going to be my 10th year. And, you know, I mean, this is bigger than, like I said, it's bigger than all of it. It's bigger than winning any state championship. It's bigger than the Hall of Champion deal we did. Life, I really believe God does everything for a reason. And my goodness, like, how great is this?
So as he says that, and you've come home, and it's a big thing for not only the alumni and yourself. What do you? I don't like using the word challenge because it makes it appear as if stuff is. But what is the thing that you have found since you've been here that you're going to have to, I guess, change to get to where you want to see your entire program, not just the football program, but the entire athletic program?
Well, I you know, I do have some great ideas of what we want to do with I don't call it like just games. I call them sporting events. Anywhere from, you know, our soccer program to Babe's, you know, games here at the Purple Palace, to my games, or whatever it is. We've got to have an opportunity to interact with our fans. We have an unbelievable fan base to be able to interact with our players, with those fans, and we can do that. Like at halftime, we're in my first game. August 30th, we're going to have the 69-70 team, the undefeated team, come back, and we're going to honor them. We only have 5 home games, so we could do a lot of different things. You know, we have the state championship team coming back. I just met with a guy today from that team. The name escapes me right now, but we have a lot of great ideas. Basketball, guys, we've always had a band, right? So I'm reaching out to the alumni band. Get the band back for football games. I want to have the band in here. I want to do things where, you know, if we have families that are interested in coming here, or prospective students, I want them to be able to maybe get on the court, do some things, interact, have our players afterwards meet, you know, things like that, where we can really interact, where it's not just about just the game, kids play, and this is all about us. No, we need to integrate everything that we do, like the Viking Village, get them into the Viking Village and really integrate that. Is it challenging? Yeah. Hey, you can call it whatever you want. Okay. And I talked to my coaches. I said, I've been at the highest level. I know what it takes. And I demand the best out of me, and I'm going to give everything I have. Okay. 24/7. Hey, give me another challenge. Absolutely. But you got to produce. Okay. That highest level, that NFL level, you want to get to the Super Bowl. If you can't do a certain job, then we'll find somebody else. Okay. That's pretty much what it is. Okay. And I'm going to try to be top on everything that I can, be accessible to parents. That's already happening. I've got phone calls left and right, and I call people right back, and they want answers, and I have answers for them. Or I'm gonna go to my coaches and find those answers. The one thing that I really wanted to stress, what I thought it was really important tonight, is that I'm going to coach football. He's going to coach basketball. Okay. Other guys are going to do volleyball. I'm not going to be sitting there telling them what to do and things like that. I want coaches to be able to coach and have the freedom to coach. Let me do all the other, details of the sport where they can be the best that they can be at that sport. So they don't have to worry about it. All they have to do is coach. That's what I want for my coaches. And I really think that that'll be very beneficial for our student athletes, that we've got great coaches, and just let them do their things and they don't have to worry about all the other detailed stuff. And then, we have such an unbelievable alumni base to get them invigorated again and have the passion of the Viking Village again. It's here. They're missing the boat a little bit, but I think, in the next year, the next few years, that mentality will change.
I will tell you something. As I grew up, as we've known, I grew up 5 streets from here, right on Renwood.
What the heck did you go to Euclid for? What the?
I'm a baseball player. That's why.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So, I did visit here.
Okay.
In the.
That was Sprock guy, right?
No, Sprock tried to get me to come here. Yes.
Yeah. Do you know I have a story about Sprock guy?
I have a lot of stories. Coach Sprock guy he was our gym teacher in middle school, and my brothers played with and for him forever. So I've known him my whole life.
Let me throw this out here. I'm playing football because of him.
Really?
I was in this gym, and they were doing tryouts or something like that, and we were practicing for basketball, and he came up to me, and I was starting to play football out there, and that was, I think, in my sophomore year, and he came up to me and he goes, son, when that helmet hits your ribs over there, I don't know if you can handle that. And I said, oh, really? Okay.
That sounds like Sprock.
And I was considering, because I played baseball when I was younger. I was a pitcher. I love to play, but I still love baseball. And when he said that to me, I was like, okay, you just gave me just fuel right on top of my fire.
So speaking of fuel and in issues, you guys both mentioned that, you've been at a higher level. You could have gone to a higher level. To come in here and be the head football coach would be one thing. Mm-hmm. To be the head football coach and the athletic director, I know of some other coaches who were assistants, also in all-male schools, who were also the AD, and they ended up giving up whatever sport they were an assistant in because of the magnitude of the job. Also add into the fact that this is a co-ed school, so you not only have the guy sports to worry about, you have the girl sports to worry about.
Right.
How do you feel that you can give everything that it needs the proper attention?
Well, let's just say this. Okay, I'm not here because of the athletic director's position or the head football coach. I talked to Bill Cervenek. I said, you have to, number one, I wanted to teach. I'm getting my master's in theology over at St. Mary's Seminary. And with that, I was able to teach, and I'm still discerning for the diaconate, which is another part of, my process in faith. My fuel and my fire, my strength come from Christ. That's where it all starts. That's the easiest way I can say it. That's where it comes from. I'm kind of shocked of like, okay, how am I gonna do all this? And every day I get up and that's what I start with.
Okay.
That's my first thing that continues through the day. We have a chapel here, okay, where the Blessed Sacrament is here, present in the school. I don't think you can find that in many schools around the city of Cleveland. So Coach Grbac is in there doing his liturgy of the hours. If you guys know what that is, I do a daily prayer in there that I start in the morning, and you do it one in the afternoon and in the evening and before you go to bed. And it's a book that the religious have to do, and I started a couple of years ago, and that's really where everything kind of focuses around that. But I told Bill Cervanek, I said, you know what, if you want me here, I want to be able to teach theology, but you know what, I'm not going to push anybody out. There's, Mr. Riddell has been here for many, many years. And by the time I got back to my driveway after I met with him, he had called me and said, we have something for you. And that's where the Marianist Urban Student Program came up. And I said, what a great fit. That's exactly kind of what I've been envisioning doing for a very long time. I thought it would be in teaching. It can be. Who knows what's going to happen, but having an opportunity, what we do is we interview 12 to 15 kids from the area here. We pick 6, and we have 24 total kids from freshman to senior year. And I guide them spiritually, mentally, physically, 24/7, all year round, not just during the school year, but even, during the summer also. So that's what I have a passion for. Athletics is one thing. I can do that. I can do the athletics. Is it demanding? Yeah, of course. Okay. But I've got great coaches around me. I've got a staff that are all St. Joe's guys, and they've coached before, either head coach or whatever position. So, I rely on those guys to do those things. But do I know what I'm doing at the highest level? Yeah, absolutely. I know exactly what I'm doing. And do I have a vision for the athletic department? Absolutely. Do I have good people around me? Yeah, absolutely. But my drive is that MUST program. That's my number one priority.
Okay.
Because I really, truly believe that's what my calling is. When you talk about vocational callings, when you discern for the diaconate or the religious life or whatever it is, you have to sit there and really kind of take the time to discern that. And it's interesting, when I was going through this process of like I said, I could have been at Ignatius and coached there and maybe been in their theology department. But to be able to come here and do that program and be a part of a community that I truly love, and then being athletic director and coaching football, I mean, I can touch a lot of different, aspects of the school and a lot of different lives, not just the students,
Right.
but the whole staff too.
So that program, short-term, long-term goal for that program, and the impact that you feel it will have on the Villa Angela St. Joe community at large.
Well, let's just say this. So the first thing that we had a strategics meeting here a couple of weeks ago, and one of the planning committees was a faith part of it. Okay. And so I was kind of drawn to that right away, and I went right over there to their table and I started talking to them. And with the chapel that we have here, with the Blessed Sacrament here, just got done talking with Father Fortuna over at Lady of Our Lake. We want to get a Eucharist adoration here at the school during the school week. Who does that? Nobody does that. And so we have morning mass on Tuesdays that our students and staff can be a part of. And Father Fortuna and I have been talking about it, maybe on that Tuesday, having the Blessed Sacrament exposed through the entire day. And then the kids can learn about that process and be formed in that and understand what they're doing when they go in there and pray and have time to have quiet, prayer life with Christ. The MUST program, what are my short goals? What are my long-term goals? Short goals, integrating what I believe in. Okay. What's the core of who I am, and presenting that to those students and understand where I'm coming from and providing anything that I can to let them succeed. That's the most important thing. Long term, what I want to be able to say is I developed certain programs with that. So more opportunities. I have right now, something just fell in my lap. My sister-in-law's father. It's the best way to say it, right? Sister-in-law's father. It's a U program. It's a youth program that reaches out to kids like that I have between their junior and senior year, where they give them internships. They get to pick their interest, and they pick the internships paid. They get picked up and dropped off. I think it's only one of the programs here in Cleveland. And so I've been in contact with the person there to be able to have that on their college applications, somewhere they've had some
Mhm.
experience in their field of interest that they can show. Not only was I a basketball player or a track star or a football player, but I was part of the MUST program. I developed all my skills in this, and I have work experience, and having responsibility to do this. That's only the beginning of it.
Mhm.
I think those things will kind of continue for those kids. And I do have a lot of resources that I can reach out to and provide that for those kids.
Now, what probably seems like a lesser important focus after all of that, short-term, long-term goals for the football program.
State championship. Plain and simple. What am I doing? What are we doing here? We're here to win state championships. Okay, let's just say this, guys. I learned my lesson right when I got to the San Francisco 49ers. So Mr. Bartolo just got up. First guy gets up to talk, and I'm sitting there, newly drafted and everything, and it's 2-a-days. And the first thing he says, men, anything short of the Super Bowl is a failure. We're here to win state championships, period. Okay. That's, when I was a senior here, we probably had the toughest schedule, probably maybe in the history of the football in Ohio. We had Massillon, Canton McKinley, St. Ed's, Ignatius, maybe, I think Euclid, maybe, North Canton, Hoover, and we ran the table. Okay.
And you can honestly say that about Euclid because that's the first year Euclid ever made the playoffs. Was 88. Was my senior year.
Right.
Robert Smith.
And then, of course, we lost to Boardman on an extra point in overtime. So
When Desmond Howard ran the kickoff back,
I know.
the first play of the game.
Yeah.
Coldest I've ever been in my life.
Hey, let's just state it as we're here to win a state championship. Period. Anything shorter than that, it's a failure. So that's what I told the kids. That's the first thing that came out of my mouth when I met with them, and I said, "Hey, you want to be a part of a program that wins state championships?" And we came to the right place.
Terry, I just want to add to that. Coach invited me when he did speak to his kids the first time, and I was blown away by that because this is my 10th year. We've won 3 of them, and I've never once even mentioned that. And I guess my point is, here's a guy I always feel like I'm the most competitive guy I've ever met, right? And I'm model myself after a guy who, my goodness, I know for a fact he doesn't like winning as much as he can't stand losing, right? And I'm just thinking you can see our kids. I was worried somebody was going to get up and tackle somebody right there in the chapel.
So the reaction was good, I'm guessing, when you said that.
Yeah.
Because you never know. Sometimes you could lose somebody every once in a while.
Hey, what's the mentality? What's the mentality that you have going in?
You're going to compete in the rest of your life.
Exactly.
Right? You're going to be going for a job. You're going to be going for, the rest of your life, you're going to be competing. And as society, we've just gone so far away from that, right? It's everyone gets a trophy and everyone feels good. And it's just, it really is. It's refreshing and then think about it from a standpoint, but not just from coaching football, but people are, that's a benefit of doing it. You don't do that for winning and losing, and that doesn't define you. But to work under a coach and know that, hey man, he wants to win, and he's going to do whatever he can to help you. That's where the fun part. He started that today. He said,
just about to go there.
he said, hey guys, you know what fun is? Fun is winning.
Oh yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
It was the same speech General Dempsey gave before we went to Iraq the first time, right?
The same thing. If that's your goal and you have kids that walk out,
hey,
that probably tells you everything you need to know about that young person in terms of what their motivations are.
Absolutely. That's why we go to compete anyway, right? Anything you've ever gone to play.
Right.
I think it's the most difficult part of coaching is the mentality that we grew up playing at, trying to instill that in a generation that doesn't have that same sort of, with like you had mentioned, parents and things. It's a very difficult sell sometimes.
To me, it's not very difficult.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want the best, then you strive for the best.
Yeah.
Why not strive for the best? Why go for second place? No, we're here for first place. That's where tonight I said to my staff, I said, you're going to get the best out of me. That's all I've done my entire life. I'm going to give everything that I have. Okay. That's what I want out of you. I want your best, and I'm going to pull the best out of you, and I'm going to demand it. I might come across a little bit harsh sometimes, but I want the best because I want the best out of them. There's guys in this room. I told this guy right here, I said, he's been a great coach. He's done everything. You know what? I want even more. And he can grow as a coach. Look at Coach Kyle, we were talking about. A man is still learning about the game of football, and he's been coaching for how long? If you're not continuing to be challenged and learn what you're doing, then you're going to become stagnant, and then it just becomes, that's not coaching.
And you start falling behind.
Yeah.
You do.
Well, and where the disconnect comes too is like kids have such a hard time taking constructive criticism because they need to understand from the rip, like, a great coach is not coming after you. He's coming after your behavior. He's trying to change the behavior.
Mhm.
So it's not, it's not a personal attack. And you have to learn that a huge part of getting to the point where you're winning is being coachable.
Mhm.
And I mean, this is way before, Coach Grbac ever got here, but you guys have heard me say this on the show. Hey, getting yelled at is a skill. Right. And my favorite examples were his daughters at school at Northwestern with Derek Pardon. Derek Pardon still says, he got on Twitter right after the whole Izzo thing. And he's like, if you don't like that, then you should transfer and you should leave. And the reality is, I don't know if it's tips one way or the other, but as a kid, as anyone that wants to be successful, you have to welcome the opportunity to get better. And you have to understand that, there's going to be people that if they want to push you, they're going to, that they have to go to that level. And I think now where I think the difference is even say in someone like myself or, Coach Mullen or, just any coach here is you got a guy where they're never going to question your credibility. It's like, hey man, Google me, so.
And any great coach, though, at the end of the day, is either trying to do one of two things, depending on your perspective. They're either trying to push you to your greatness, or they're trying to pull that greatness out of you, get it to the surface so that potential can be realized, right?
Sure, absolutely. And I met with my team today. So I met with my kids today.
That must have been fun.
And coach had something. Yeah, coach had something, so he couldn't make it. But we were talking about him, and when he got the job, I text a couple of my better kids, and I'll pick on one, Jonah Wag, who you guys know. Jonah texts me, and he goes, "Coach, it's that football dude, right?" And so I said, let me expound on that a little bit, guys. I said, first off, that football dude was the most recruited guy in basketball in this room. True or false? You're a better high school basketball player than high school football player.
Yeah,
True or
it
false?
was.
Okay, true.
It was.
And I said, like, hey man, you're talking about a guy who has forgotten more about this game, not football, not anything else, more about this game than you guys will ever know. And it's funny, Elvis is saying that about pushing me because I said the exact same things to my kids. I said, I'm going to be a better coach because this guy's in charge of us.
Right.
And more importantly, he's here not to teach you guys about basketball or football. He's here to make you better and to make you a better person.
Yeah.
And we're all going to get better. And heck, man, what we've lost along the way from a mentorship standpoint is the trainer being trained, and that's what I'm so excited because, like you said, I'm excited to be a better coach, right? It's been a while since since I've been, and obviously you don't work at the Pentagon and some of the places I have and not be pushed. So that's something I'm ecstatic about.
Yeah.
Well, there's a little story about Bill Polian like that. He was out at a conference and he left the conference early because he was going to catch a hockey game. And one of the guys he was going along with, he said, no, the guy's really sharp. Maybe I can pick something up from him. Well, here's a guy who has been a master, general manager, executive at the NFL at the highest level. Still feels like you can learn something from it. That's how you remain successful. Is you're willing to, you realize that you don't know everything. That's the most important thing you got to know is that you don't know everything, so you can move on from that, and that's how you develop.
So let's go back a second to the more recruited for basketball than football.
Wow.
What made the decision for you?
Academics. Plain
Okay.
and simple. So when I was in 1988, I had Miami of Ohio, like Bowling Green. The MAC schools were
OU, right?
yeah, OU
A little bit, yeah.
This is for football or basketball.
Basketball,
Right.
basketball. And you mind, guys, I played basketball since I was like 5 years old.
Mhm.
Played baseball, gave it up to play basketball. Didn't play football. I played my 8th grade year, half the year, because I was overweight by 1 pound.
Oh,
I think it was like 131 or something.
because you had to be 130 with the CYO weight rolls.
Yeah, right. And then I came out here, did not play my freshman year.
Mhm.
Coach Story saw me throw the football around in that field back there at gym class halfway through the football year. He said, son, you got to come out and play football. I'm like, all right, I'll come out. Went to right to JVs. My junior year, I did not play. Dale Pratt was the senior quarter.
Former teammate of
Yeah.
mine.
I only played my senior year
Mhm.
here. And so I started getting, Ohio State came in, and then Earl Bruce had gotten fired, so we never heard from Ohio State. Des and I never heard from Ohio State after that.
So
I'll tell-
that's what happened.
That's what happened.
Congrats,
Hey,
Cooper.
you know,
Congrats.
the documentary on HBO, which is about the rivalry, was
Yeah.
one of the best
It's
ones.
great,
that,
isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
That was the one question when Des was on there that
Yeah.
I never understood why no
Yeah.
one asked him that. And
Yeah,
now
it was
you
a
just said-
turnover.
oh,
Okay, so
Yeah.
this is how I got recruited at Michigan. So we're sitting here, basketball season, football season's over. Gary Muller was recruited to this area at that time. He comes in and he's watching film on Dez, and he goes, "Who's the quarterback?" So he came out here, and I remember he's sitting over here on one of the bleachers, and he watched me practice. He stayed for the weekend. We played at Ignatius that weekend.
Mhm.
I was offered on Monday from Michigan. I mean, he saw enough athletic talent. He goes, "I want that kid."
And you guys didn't pass the ball a ton, right?
No,
I mean, yeah,
God, I
right.
made.
Why would you if you could just hand the ball off to Desmond? I wouldn't throw it either. No
Well,
offense.
It worked out in college for him, though.
Oh,
Those-
oh, yeah.
Those two guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then once Michigan jumped on, Michigan State came here. That's a whole nother story. Nick Saban was the recruiter at that time.
Ooh.
Who's that?
And I was sitting, I think Coach Moran had his office over here at the top of the steps. And I was sitting in that office with Nick Saban. I said, "Coach, does Tony Mandrich take steroids?" He went off on me. Like, you see him on the sidelines now. It was like twice than that. I mean, it was, here's an 18-year-old kid and Nick Saban like screaming at the top of his lungs at
well,
me.
Coach Saban, the answer is yes.
I had Notre Dame a little bit, but I think Lou Holtz was taking over at the time, and so maybe I didn't fit his style of offense. I got to Michigan, and Bo was still running kind of like a wishbone kind of thing going on,
Mhm.
and Cam Cameron was the offensive coordinator at that time, and he kept on going to me. He goes, "Hey, screw it up just a little bit." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" It's kind of like, back then Bo was able to like kick you in the butt,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
literally kick you in the butt. And he kept on doing that. And then we started implementing, do you guys remember Cincinnati's no huddle offense
Yep.
against the 49ers?
Yep. Yep.
Boomer Esiason. That year, Gary Muller went there. He knew a couple of the coaches, and we implemented that exact same offense. And that's where everything kind of just took off after that.
Now I want to ask you this question because we're talking about Michigan football right now. We had Justin Lane, who just got drafted the other night by the
Yeah.
Pittsburgh Steelers, on our show last Thursday.
Last Thursday, we interviewed him
Right.
hours before the draft
Hours
started.
before the
Oh,
draft.
wow.
Yeah.
So I asked him, being from Benedictine and obviously playing against Ohio State,
Mhm.
was Michigan, because that's the rivalry up there, and he
Right.
said he treated it like any other game.
Yeah, we always did too.
Is that
Yeah.
so?
The bigger rival, for me, it was Notre Dame. I don't know why. That's the only, I think I have a losing record against them, like 1-2-1 against Notre Dame.
Hmm.
Everybody else, I think I have
Yeah.
one loss against Michigan
It's
State.
the one that stands out, though.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
so with you being a Michigan guy,
Yeah.
I didn't dislike you then because I was an Ohio State fan. I disliked you because I was a Notre Dame fan. I was in graduate school at the time, and I remember the play very vividly. And I mean, it was a phenomenal play, the pump fake and Des laying out and the whole 9 yards.
Awesome highlight. though. It is an awesome highlight.
But the thing that Justin said was, for him, it was another game. But for them, they treated it
Oh, yeah.
like
Oh, yeah.
it was.
It's
yeah.
like death.
Right.
But
Yeah,
but
it
for him,
is.
the bigger game was more the Ohio State game.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, for Ohio State back then, how about this? This is a true story. Herb Street and I are pretty good friends. And so the captains would always go to Chicago for the Big Ten kickoff or whatever. So we went out one night and got a couple of beers. We were talking, having a good time.
As college kids?
Yeah.
No.
We had a good Chicago of all places. So he and I come to the field at the 50-yard line before the game. This is a true story. He comes up to me and goes, "Son of a bitch, they just re-signed him. They just re-signed Cooper right before the game." Everybody was pissed off on the sideline.
Are you sure that wasn't like every Ohio State fan in the world saying that?
I even said it as a Michigan guy. I was like, "What are they doing?"
That's
So,
fantastic.
When they name a date in the month 31301, I think it was, because
Yeah.
they were like 31301
Yeah.
against you guys.
Yeah.
And when they name a date after
Yeah.
you got a problem as a coach.
Well, do you guys remember the game they played against South Carolina in the bowl game, and Mr. Ohio was playing for South
Yeah.
Carolina,
Yes,
Yep.
I do.
and he just ran all over.
I think
Ohio
he
State.
went for 4 touchdowns and like almost
Something
200
like
yards.
that.
Yep.
I thought he was going to get fired after
Yeah.
that game.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that always got him in trouble, and I don't want to talk about Ohio State football, but the thing that always got him in trouble is he had the same mentality that Justin kind of said. To him, the Michigan game was just another game,
Yeah,
and it's just not. It's
it's
just
not.
not. It's not.
Yeah, I mean,
And I think that's when being that Coach Schembechler actually was from Ohio and coached at Ohio State,
Coach
when
under Woody.
he-
Yeah.
yeah,
he understood that more.
yeah. He tried to downplay it, but you might as well. Anything that you've done during the season, it doesn't matter.
No.
I mean, every single play, every inch, everything that you do, it is, man, going to Ohio State and play there. I mean, everything I did, I mean, it was like spot on. It had to be perfect. Everything, every throw, it was so much. It was a pressure cooker. I mean, it was just so intense. The Super Bowl wasn't even close to that. I mean, it was like, Super Bowl. I will tell you guys, the Super Bowl, it's a bunch of guys playing, and there's like a zoo going around you. It's crazy. It's the craziest thing in the world. No one's
That's
watching
the best
game.
quote ever.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
How has no one used that before?
No one's watching a game. Everybody's corporate.
Yeah.
And there's just a game going on, and it's really between the two teams, and that's it.
Well, I work at an advertising agency, so the reality is we
Yeah.
watch for the commercials.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And for you as an 8th round pick in your first year,
Yeah.
I mean, that had to be surreal.
Yeah, you know what? Boy, I went to the God works in mysterious ways. I think. I mean, I went to one of the greatest places, and I tell you, I walked in there, and this was before salary cap had just kicked in that year, and that's why a lot of us, like Trent Green, went later in the rounds. The first 2 guys went was Meyer and Bledsoe,
Yep.
and then everybody else kind of like got trickled on
Mhm.
later on. So I walked in. I had Joe Montana's old locker room, locker.
Yeah, because he had just gone to Kansas City,
yeah,
right?
and
Yeah.
I had Joe's parking spot at Candlestick. So here's a kid from Cleveland, Ohio. I had a red Pontiac. Oh God, what was the name of it? I drove it across country, and it actually died on me when I got it to the hotel.
I was gonna say the most amazing thing is that it made it.
Pull
I
the Montana
Bonneville.
spot.
I drive in my first preseason game to lot number 1. Here's this red, beat up, crappy old car, and there's Jerry Rice's Ferrari. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? And so I walk in that locker room. There's Jerry Rice, John Taylor, Brent Jones, Tom Rathman, Steve Young, Steve Bono. I played my second year when we won the Super Bowl. Deion Sanders on the team, Richard Dent, Tim McDonald.
This just in, they were pretty good.
Yeah, we were
Could score some points.
I tell you what, I gotta give props to 2 people in that organization, 2 players. Steve Bono taught me how to be a professional, on and off the field. He was great. I still talk to him today. And Tom Rathman was right next to me, right next to my locker, and he taught me everything.
The quintessential fullback, man.
Yep.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah.
He was great, and he's a great coach. He's been coaching in the NFL for, I think he's still coaching. Man, he knew the game. He really
He
did.
just looked. I don't know what he was like as a person, but he just, when you saw him, he looked mean. Like he
Yeah.
looked.
He's the sweetest man in
Yeah,
the world.
I'm sure.
Yeah, but when he played,
oh,
and you know what? He knew how to set up guys during the game because you could cut as a fullback. You can
Yep.
kind of do those things. And he would hit a guy for maybe like a quarter and a half, and then he'd come around and then he'd cut you. And then he would come around you, and then he would get you underneath your chin. He was a true professional in everything he did. He was
Cunning.
awesome.
You had a world class fullback here too, man. Right, Zelly. Right.
Oh yeah,
And-
Scotty Z was great. I mean, yeah. So I mean, here you got Dez running all over the place, and we had Jerry Carlock, who was one of the greatest
Played
backs we've
Eastern
ever
Michigan.
had,
Yeah.
and he was a basketball player too. And then Scott Zelli was a fullback, and he was just a beast. Oh man, he would just kill people. So, more questions.
Oh, yeah.
So, as as the dust is starting to settle on coming here, what are you most looking forward to as you get into not only the athletic director side of it, but the actual football side of it?
At the football side of the first game, man, this is gonna be tough for me to be one of the head football coaches here at VASJ. Ooh. There's an unbelievable history there, and to be a part of that, that's gonna be rough on me. That'll be rough, and I'll get maybe like the first couple plays, just like a player, get through that. Babe probably felt the same way the first time he stepped on the court. As a coach, there's such a history here. Great coaches that, you want to do just as well as them or even better. You want to keep the tradition going. To step on that field, to be the head football coach and know that, like Coach Grbac and Coach Story and all the great coaches that have been here, to be a part of that, that's something special.
Now you talked about, how are you going to get through that first game and all. How much more difficult is it because you're not going to be on the field, you're going to be on the sideline? What I always did, because whenever we had our games, I always wanted to get the kickoff first because we were I wanted to kick the ball off because I want to get out there, I want to get that first hit in there, get that and just get that out of the way instead of having to try to, get all amped up and then you're kind of waiting for it. So what do you think you're going to have to do there?
The strategy starts. You got to know the wind condition. You got to know, what kind of special teams that we have. Do we have a kid that can kick off and get that ball in the end zone? If not, all that, everything that you do prior to the game. And once you get into that game, who knows? It might be pouring rain. You never know. So we got to be prepared for all that. Yeah. Would I love to have the ball and just go down and score and get it, get the good thing going? It goes beyond that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm a true head football coach, and Coach Kyle has really taught me a lot. I've learned, he's had unbelievable offenses that I've been a part of, and there's times where we would defer to the second half, and I'd be like, "Come on, Coach! I mean, this is going to be over in like 2 minutes," and he would always be strategizing, always understanding how good our defense is playing, how we're developing during the season. Is our offense, do we have any injuries, things like that? All those things have to be part of the factor of what you want to do. And it starts really even before the kickoff.
Coach, with regards to the program, coming out of a valley a little bit compared to where you guys have been in history, does that make the road easier or does it actually make it tougher?
I don't know. I don't look at it too far in advance. My focus right now is getting those kids prepared for the season, and I know how to do that. First game first. You got to win the first game.
Mm-hmm.
That's where my focus is, and then we'll continue on. Do I have a bigger focus? Yeah, for the rest of the season, absolutely. But what I want to be able to do is for those guys to develop their skills so that when we're teaching on the board, and I told these guys when I first met them, I said, you've got to be able to teach on the board. You got to take what we teach on the board to the field, work on your technique, and then you've got to be able to implement what we do on the field during the games. And then when we come back, how did you process those three things? Some guys can't handle that.
Mm-hmm.
Some guys can't do the board. Some guys can't go to practice. And then there's some guys that you let them play and they're just world beaters.
Yeah.
So, but my focus is really getting those kids prepared. And then whatever we have to do for the first game. But at the same time, I'm getting ready for the long haul. I think I do a pretty good job of game planning just because of my history of what I've been through at the highest levels. I kind of understand what it takes to game plan, and I did that, over at Ignatius too. So you're going to see a lot of different things as the weeks progress, and depending on what, personnel that we have and things like that. But, my mentality is like we said at the beginning, state championship. That's what I'm focused on.
I ask all of, especially and I've asked Babe this question, prospective students coming out of 8th grade,
bring them my way.
Right. Why St. Joe's? Or excuse me, why Villa Angela St. Joe's?
Okay, so I have, and maybe I can speak for maybe our entire athletic department. We are an unbelievable opportunity for our school is this. At the front end, what I call the front end, that 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, okay, having an opportunity to come on campus and to really be integrated into our athletics. Do you come here for basketball games? Do you come here for football games? How do you interact, and how do you get interacted with? Do we do, Bam and I were talking about some leadership camps, things like that. Obviously our sport camps, let's just say Ignatius, they have summer enrichment where they're between, I think they're 7th and 8th grade or something like that, whatever it is. And those kids are indoctrinated into that culture. So we've got to be able to do similar things where we can get kids on our campus on a regular basis in the summertime and really get them to understand who we are, what we're about, and really introduce them to that Viking Village feeling, okay. But then the real kicker is, okay, then you have those 4 years of teaching those kids, getting them to the next level, winning it, winning through that process and continuing to grow, not only as a student athlete, but spiritually, mentally, physically, all that. You have a window of 4 years, and 4 years goes very quickly.
Yes, it does.
You've got to have great coaches that are great teachers. Not guys who are yelling and screaming and dropping F-bombs and doing that stuff. You want to be able to teach, and that's what we have. We have great teachers of all athletics. At the back end, okay, I have a great resource everywhere from Division I to Division III college coaches. So what I can offer to a prospective family that's coming in for football, okay, I have the front end. I have great teachers that have, taught the game. We have an unbelievable school here academically to match that. And then on the back end, they want to see, where am I going to go from here? What's the process? What's the end game? We have that end game. There's not too many places that have the resources that we have at the basketball level, at the football level now, and then continue on for our other programs. I think what's going to happen is all our athletics are going to mirror that. We're going to have that integration, those 4 years, and then what's the back end of it? Continuing on, and can we facilitate that for that student athlete to continue on after that?
Pat, someone asked me the question, and I didn't know the answer to this. Is there another school in Northeast Ohio where both the basketball and the football coach both play D1? Now, I'm not comparing Army to Michigan. I will say the Army-Navy game is better than Michigan-Ohio State. I will say that. But someone posed that question to me, and I thought that was very interesting. I couldn't think of one.
Yeah.
I
I don't think there is. And so the thing that kind of comes through for me there is, and goes back to a lot of what you, and I'll use the word preach in the beginning, there's a relationship there.
Yeah.
So on the back end of the equation, you have a ton of relationships. You have a ton of relationships. And again, when I look at the situation, and I know him personally because he was a teammate of my son's, Derek Pardon is, for lack of a better word, he's the poster child of what somebody coming in here, where they can go.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. I appreciate
it. And it's the whole thing. And again, you've sent guys to lots of different places. Derek's at Northwest. Derek is going to graduate with a degree from Northwestern, and came from some interesting circumstances.
Yeah.
But that to me would be the guy that I'd want to hold out front and say, okay. And he played football for a while too, because that's where he and my son were teammates. Was CYO football. But just a great kid who came in, needed a little direction, right? Needed a little push, needed some help.
And you know this, Terry. I mean, Derek's got world-class parents. Donnie
Absolutely.
Cynthia,
they're great people.
As Elvis said at the beginning about his parents, I think it starts at home. You know what I mean? Like
absolutely.
we're not gonna, we're not gonna make you into that. That's gonna something we're gonna mold and we're gonna but it starts with and parents everywhere. I mean, everyone says they value education, but what does that really look like? And Derek is my favorite example in this. He wanted Ohio State really bad because, I mean, and they were here. Coach Mata was here. Coach Mata was a great friend of mine. He was here probably 20, 25 times to see Carleton. As soon as Northwestern offered, he took it. After he had Pitt, he had, a plethora of really good offers. But that was his parents saying, hey, a knucklehead like you has no business going to Northwestern. So as soon as we have that opportunity, we're going to take it. And again, a lot of folks say that, but what does that look like? And I think having guys that have not only been there, but in terms of playing at the biggest level, but at high academic institutions in college that, kind of know what this process looks like.
Well, I think that's one of the biggest misnomers at a lot of schools, but especially here. As somebody that you guys were the enemy, I've told you this. I grew up in Euclid. So I have a lot of friends that graduated from here still to this day.
Yeah.
But when it was time to play,
Yeah.
they were the thing is, you have the Elvis Grbacs of the world, and the Clark Kellogg's, and everybody knows it, and Desmond Howard's. Everybody knows the names. But it's the hundreds of other athletes that have left here and gone on to do other things, play exceptionally at the next level.
You guys have a mutual friend, Chris Stevers.
Yes,
right there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So
there's so many names that you can bring up, and it'll. The thing is about a place like this, it will continue to do that. It will continue to produce great student athletes. Will they get to the highest level? There's a possibility there. I think the history that we have, the system that we have set up here, really dictates and really kind of can flourish that for an athlete that's really considering, and even the parents. I think the parents have to come here and really kind of understand what we're about, and to really feel a part of this. So not only is it just because of their student athlete, but the family also. My mom and dad still come to games. My father-in-law still comes to games, and they don't even have kids here. But they're still coming back here to watch games. And so that's what we want. We want families to come here and to be really a part of what we're doing.
And Terry will tell you this: the first game that we covered here was the Hoban game, and as I said, I grew up 6 streets from here. That was the 3rd time I'd ever stepped foot in this building ever. But I said to him that night, I said, it's funny, growing up watching St. Joe's football when I was a kid. On Saturday nights, Detroit Central Catholic would be bussing in, and they'd be playing. It was the same people here. They were still here. They were just they were a little bit older, but it's the same people. And you don't see that in a lot of places. You see it at Benny, and Lake is one of those places kind of too. I don't see it at my alma mater very much, because it's a completely different place. But when you have, like you said, tradition is tradition, and people come back for that. And you guys are able to afford them the ability to do that.
But the other part of it is that, okay, so we do have a great tradition, and we do have people that do come back here. Now we have an unbelievable opportunity, not only basketball, football, soccer, whatever, girls, volleyball. We have an unbelievable opportunity that people come here and continue that tradition, and then to be those people that continually come here. I mean, that's what we're, he really did a great job through the thick and thin. But you can tell there's an upswing happening here. And I think that's been noticed by a lot of local schools. They're going, okay, what the heck is going on over there? And I think a lot of families, I already talked to a number of people that have come up to me and said, hey, what's going on here? And then I just have to explain to them. I'm saying, this is what's really happening. And are they surprised? Not really, because of the tradition. It was always going to come back. It was a matter of time. But you got to give hats off to people like Babe and his dad to really kind of stick through all that hard time. And, our future is very, very bright.
Yeah. And I think that's the similarity between our places. At one point, this was a destination.
Absolutely was.
Okay.
Absolutely was.
Like St. Ignatius is now, like St. Edward's has become. Schools like Benedictine and Villa Angela, St. Joe's, it's more a young man, or here also a young woman, has to kind of want to be here.
Sure.
It's not, well, I want to go to, it's not, I'm going to Joe's because that's where people go.
Right.
Or I'm going to Benny because that's where people know. It takes a little bit different kind of young man or young woman.
Right.
And you really, that want to has to be here. And if you're able to get those kids in the door, and then you're able to make that little bit of impact, that whether it's that push or that pull, however it happens, that's when things can really start to blossom, and you get to the point where people are saying, hey, wait a minute,
and so that's
what's going on? 5 years ago, we had this conversation. 5 years ago, there was talk of they may not be anymore.
We had 220 some kids.
What was it? 65 kids combined in the one class or something like that.
We ended up graduating 35. The biggest compliment I get about our place is when an opposing coach tells me that he's got a kid that he just like loves coaching, and he'll say he reminds me of a Joe. He reminds me of a Joe's kid, and that makes me feel really good because it's just like, okay, what type of people are we dealing with, and are we producing? And even when we first met, when he got the gig, I don't know how much I love coaching. I know I love coaching at VASJ. Like I said, the number one thing you can do to show you believe in the place is send your kid here. My kid's here. Another thing when we talk about what do we offer is you can play multiple sports. My kid plays 4 of them, right? I mean, this is something where you can come. I mean, we were talking about this earlier today. Back when he was here, like, I mean, if Desmond was here right now, he'd be our starting point guard. He'd be a star, point guard for us. Back then, in the in the 80s, like, so much of his personality that I remember is from the way he grew up here. I mean, think about who he played basketball here with: Tregley, John Buford, Eric Riley. Now here's this.
Yeah, those guys are pretty good.
Pretty good. I talk about that '87 team all the time.
Oh my God!
Because we played you in the districts at Euclid, and I've never seen they had a taller front line. You had a taller front line than most of the teams in the NBA at that time. And the funny thing is, and I told your dad this, you guys didn't win it.
Well, we went down to where I don't know where the semis where we ran into Dayton Dunbar, and I think that was the year that we went. There was a 3-point line went in.
Yeah, 87.
Babe and I were just talking about this. I remember running down a court as fast as I possibly can, and I was dying, and they just ran us out of the gym.
Yeah.
But they had Ice-T Taylor and
Mark Baker. They
were on a 3-on-1 break, and they stopped at the 3-point line and went, and I'm like, who does
Which was
that?
I was going to say that was unheard of.
Yeah,
that was unheard
of back
I mean,
then.
now we see it.
Yeah,
back then it was.
We just got blown out, and I mean, it was just they played a totally different game that we were not used to. But that was a great team.
And I think you kind of saw that this year at St. Ed's when they played Moeller. Moeller plays a completely different style.
Moeller was as good as I've seen in the last.
Moeller, I said when we were down there, they are a more athletic, better shooting version of the Hickory Huskers.
Yeah.
They frustrate the heck out. I hadn't seen it all year. We covered Ed's 4 or 5 times, and guys would fight through, and couldn't believe they got open, and it's a 4-footer, and they grazed the front of the rim.
I told Flan afterwards, I said, you played about as great of a first quarter, and you're down 6, and I'm like, holy smokes, like you guys gave everything. But going back to this guy, like he talks about this humility that he eventually, but believe me, at that point, I mean, he did. I remember watching as a kid, thinking to myself, like, here's this Croatian white kid playing against, these guys in practice, and it's like, it's just like just I don't want to say no respect, but like I am going to kick your tail, and I can remember him running his mouth. I mean, he was Bill Laimbeer, he was Larry Bird. Like, I mean, he just there was
tell
never.
Tell him what we were talking about with Jordan Dean this afternoon. We played a totally different game.
Oh yeah,
because remember, I mean, you would come through the paint.
Yeah.
And you're getting your head knocked off.
Yeah.
You're not.
Nobody was getting into the paint against that squad.
If you wanted to get to the free throw line, show your X-rays first.
An 8-footer was a layup against that group.
It was a totally different game than I think it is now.
And this guy's the original cheap shot artist. My old man still like he was going to knock your head
As
off.
somebody that has been the target of a lot of Coach Papa Quaz's tirades over the years. If he's not talking about you, he doesn't care.
Pat, you should have seen today. He pulls his car up by his office over here on the track. He's like, Coach, this isn't just you just pull your car up
wherever you want.
He goes, I'll do whatever that guy wants. I got so much stuff on you. I'll do it. But
it hasn't stopped.
We talk about like great moments in history. When we did the Hall of Champions here, I mean, Elvis was part of that crew with Lon and Fletcher, and it's a magical night in the history of our school with Clark Kellogg and the Golick brothers. But one of the things that it was the best idea we ever had is we had each guy pick a coach to put their jacket on. And I mean, it really ended up being an emotional moment because Clark had Coach Straub put it on, who I think died a year and a half later. And of course, Elvis had my old man do it, and just the history. And again, it goes back to the constructive criticism. Believe me, I saw that when I was a kid. It wasn't all sunshines and rainbows, guys.
I remember the hoop over here. It wasn't pretty.
And man, I mean, E, you couldn't even talk to kids like that anymore. The way my dad, some of the things my dad said to you, you'd get arrested now.
It was constant back and forth, just like today. Like I just walked up to his car. I'm like, what the heck are you doing? Get your car out of here! And he just went right back at me. It's like, and we never missed a beat.
But I know that was that was one of his proudest moments of his life doing that.
If you this is probably going to be pretty tough because you've had some really great athletic moments here at VA. If you had to pick one, what would it be?
Wow. Oh, man, you put me on the spot.
That's our job. No.
Yeah.
Athletic moments here?
That sounds like a good question, Pat.
It does. I'm gonna mark it down as well.
Yeah, it's one.
Wow, I there's so many. Oh, jeez.
That's okay.
You had a good dunk for his Glenville. I remember that one.
Yeah. You know what? This sounds crazy. Maybe it wasn't here. I gave a pass to Eric Riley one time. I think it was against Valley Forge. I think it was against Valley in a playoff game.
At the jar?
And I was going up for a layup on the left-hand side, and I saw E coming out in the corner of my eye, and I did one of those Larry Bird things where you think you're going up for a layup, and you kind of just throw it over the back of your shoulder, and you know the guy's coming, and he took it, and he reversed it, and he dunked it, and it was like, wow, did I just do that? Was I able to do that? I will say this too. So, I played T. Miller.
Tony was a freshman. Yeah.
Was a freshman. There was times when I would always, interact with the point guards. Like I would be underneath rebounding on a foul shot or something like that, and I can look at one of the guys, and I had that arm. How many times did I throw from that baseline to a guy running down the court, catching it like right in stride, and it was 2 points the other way, like that. I mean, I remember like little things like that we just did. I mean, we just had we had such a good rapport with we just played well together. I mean, it was just awesome to do some of the things that we did. I mean, you put a bunch of basketball players, the alumni in here, you're going to hear stories left and right, like for all night. You guys should do something like that where a bunch of guys just come back and be able to be on the show like this.
That'd be great.
You just let it open, and there would be unbelievable stories.
I mean, that's an argument in itself. I mean, you were arguably on the two. I mean, and I'm not saying this is a throwing shade, but the two best teams did not win it, right? I mean, those. I mean, your team, your senior year of
Damn,
football.
Mike Moran. He's gonna kill me.
Now the vet's the one.
Yeah, he was good to us too. Come on, you can't do that.
The vet's the one you should be taking the shot at, dude. That team. I mean, it was the best. That could have been the best team in the country that year.
Yeah,
I mean,
we were pretty good.
I mean,
God,
how many guys went D1 off the team? I mean,
Oh,
Bobby Mullen went to OU.
yeah,
Jerry Carlock.
Yeah,
I mean,
so my 88
Desmond.
team, the football team, D1 scholarship. Wait a minute, just 88 D1 scholarships the entire class. We had, I think, 120 graduate. I think we had close to 20 guys, 15 to 20 guys go D1.
That's insane.
That's nuts.
Scholarship.
Yeah, that is.
We had the most scholarships, athletic scholarships in the history of the school.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, if we have Eric Riley on the show, I just hope he doesn't remember putting Spalding across my face. And I went up for a layup, and I didn't even see him. And boom.
My experience for that was Wilbur Hawkins.
Yeah.
Oh, so
In a freshman game.
Let me tell you this.
I turned around, thought I was going to the glass. Yeah, no, it's over there somewhere.
Babe and I shared this story today. One of my favorite moments of all time. Mike Moran's story. We're playing against Mayfield, I think, in his district championship, and we are getting run down the court in the first half. And
The Snyder brothers, Dave and Don Snyder.
Donnie Snyder,
my
really?
God,
They should be on here. We should.
They're
killing us.
going to be on our GCC
And it's
show.
it's like maybe 3 minutes to go in the first half, and I call a timeout.
That is hilarious.
And we get to the sideline, and Moran goes, "Who the hell called the timeout?" And I said, "I did. We're getting our asses run up and down the court. Did you see what's going on out there?" So Mike and I had that kind of relationship. And Quaz and I had that. It was just like we butted heads.
Like,
constantly.
what are you doing? Yeah. Oh man.
Shows you were willing to take charge.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well,
I
did
don't
he
know.
put you back on the floor?
Oh yeah.
Well, then you're all right.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if it was just for show. There's a couple times he would just walk in here, and we would be screwing around at the beginning of practice, and he would say something, and I would say something back to him, and get your asses out of here. And we would run off the court because we knew we had to practice. He'd kick us out of here and we would be gone.
What do you got?
I think I checked
Wow.
off.
I checked.
Yeah,
all
I
the
had
boxes,
everything. I
man.
checked all the boxes tonight.
Terry, I quoted this in the News Herald, but this is a great way to very apropos way to end it. I mean, Elvis talked about, hey, we need pioneers, not historians, you know, and the Vikings.
Yeah,
went
it's a good way to look
the
at it.
Vikings went and they took over lands. I mean, they went and they conquered, and I tell our kids all the time. I say, hey man, if you think Desmond Howard and London Fletcher and Clark Kellogg and Elvis Grbac are walking through this door, like you're wrong.
Actually,
You can't say that anymore.
And I said,
Wow,
that's what just happened. That's what just happened.
Bill Turk just said that.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
wanted.
I mean,
he wanted you to say that.
So
But you know what? I don't want to interrupt. We need new guys. New
Right.
guys to come in. The guys that want to be a part of this history and girls that want to be a part of this history that are the next, you know, Elvis
The next
Grbac or
chapter.
Desmond
or the next Barb Grbacs.
Yeah, exactly. We want those type of, you know, student athletes to come here because they can flourish. Everybody in the past has done, you know, Babe's players that we've done it here. Those players that are looking right now, we want them here.
Yeah, I just don't know if anyone's got the conduit between the old and the new like we do. You know, we call it the old and the new, the red and the blue. I mean, just the connections we have, I feel like is
Conduit. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice
Nice word.
shot.
Is
at
that-
the
is that
end,
one of
but
the
not
words?
word of
Is
the
that
day.
one-
Not the word of the day.
Not the word of the day.
Good opportunity. Well, we want to thank. Obviously, we want to thank Babe for helping us set this up, but we really appreciate you've had a very long day, as you
Yeah.
said, and we
Yeah.
appreciate you sitting down with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank
and we
you.
wish you the very best of luck in all that you're going to do here, and I'm sure it's going to be great. And hopefully, we can get a state of the program with your program.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anytime you guys need me, you just let me know and we'll set it up.
maybe
Yeah,
talk
we'll
back
reach
about
out
the
to
first
the
game.
AD. He knows
Well,
the guy. Yeah.
we'll reach out to the AD, right? So, without further ado, this has been a special edition of Talkback Fans. I'm Pat Lyman.
I'm Danny Boyce.
Terry Howell.
And Tuesday?
Yeah, it's looking like
Yeah,
Tuesday. At this point.
Tuesday for our regular show at Lino's. So we'll see you then. Have a great weekend. Later.
Bye.